Here we okay. All right, about to go live in just a second. As soon as I see the view counter. So we'll go live as soon as I get some people in. Running a little bit late. I got somebody. All right, let's go live. Well, welcome back to WMMA Now with your host, Chuck Stevenson. I want to do a little impromptu stream tonight. I want to talk about a few things. First, let's go ahead and break down the weekend, though, because we didn't get to this on Sunday night. First up, One Championship had Bad Blood on Friday. Had a pair of ladies bouts. First up, both of them in the atomweight division. First up, B. Nguyen versus Lin Hajin. And Lin Hajin defeated B. Nguyen via decision. This is a pretty good fight. Very fun, entertaining fight. Non-stop action. Just from bell to bell. Lin Hajin just too much for B. Nguyen physically. Then in the second fight, G and Radzuan defeated Mei Yamaguchi via, I believe it was split decision. Oh, unanimous decision. I disagree with this decision, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But it was a good fight. You know, Mei Yamaguchi came in on like a week notice. G and Radzuan, she hadn't fought in about a year, I think. And then Yamaguchi came in week notice. Looked like she had already actually been training really hard for the fight, so did really well. Like I said, I disagree with the decision. We'll discuss that in just a second because we're going to talk about One Championships. Slew of questionable decisions lately. Then on Saturday, Coastal Combat number 10 had a flyweight main event. Lisa Carriasso on the right there defeated Nicole Sepisveri via decision in the main event. I didn't get to watch this one. Apparently it was on, they had a pay-per-view, but I was working. And it was like super early when it was on, so I didn't get to watch it. Hopefully they'll upload it eventually. And then XOC3 Redemption had a strawweight main event. I did not get to see this one at all either. So then we move into UFC 271, where Casey O'Neill defeated Roxanne Modafferi via split decision. This was a good fight. I thought that, you know, O'Neill, you could tell she had worked a lot on her striking, but I got to give my hats off to Roxanne Modafferi. You know, usually you see a retirement bout or a fighter announces that they're retiring and they have one foot out the door. So they're not necessarily going all out. Whereas with this one, you could tell Modafferi went absolutely all out in this one, gave a hell of a performance. I was surprised she didn't try to take the fight to the ground more often, but I think she wanted to give the fans, you know, something really entertaining. I thought Casey O'Neill improved a lot in her stand-up overall, at least offensively. Her defense leaves a lot to be desired, though. But Roxanne Modafferi's last fight, I believe it was fight number 50 for her. So she's getting out while basically she still has her brain intact, is what she's alluded to. And then on Sunday, like early Sunday, Lumpini Stadium, boxing stadium in Bangkok hosted Fairtex fight. They had a women's atomweight MMA bout. Winha defeated Pawina Palakan via submission due to rear naked choke in the first round. So Palakan took Ha down and then proceeded to look like an absolute novice on the ground. I don't know what was going on with that, but I think I posted a timestamp in a community post if you want to go check this bout out, but there wasn't much to it. I mean, it was over very fast. So that was it for your weekend recap. So first up, I want to talk about the UFC 271 bout between Modafferi and O'Neill. You know, obviously it was Modafferi's retirement bout. And O'Neal got a lot of boos, which I felt were mostly undeserved. I mean, yeah, okay. A lot of people were mad because she was talking smack going into the fight. It's like, you got to sell the fight. You got to sell your fight. If you're on a big pay-per-view, I mean, even though she wasn't on the main card, the pay-per-view card, you still, it was her first time on a big event, and she was going in there trying to move up the rankings against a former top 10 opponent. You got to bring attention to yourself. You got to try to sell the fight, and people were giving her crap for that. And then, after the fight, she said she was upset because, the focus the entire fight week from the media, and even when they were talking to O'Neal about it, was this being Modafferi's retirement bout. And she said she wasn't happy about that. I think O'Neal has a good point. I think that the MMA media overall did not cover this fight the way that it should have been covered. I talked about this on Thursday night, that this was basically a passing of the torch fight. For MMA media, though, all they were really focused on was, oh, this is Roxanne Modafferi's retirement bout. It's Roxy's last fight. It's over for her. She's done fighting after this. And can she pull it off one last time? Blah, 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 blah. I've made, it's no secret that I'm not a big fan of the MMA media as a whole. I think 90% of them just aren't very good at what they do. The writers aren't very good. Most of the interviewers out there aren't very good. The ones that are good, I've mentioned them in the past. I think John Hyun Ko does good interviews. James Lynch does good interviews. I think Drake Riggs does good interviews. There are some good interviewers out there, but most of them aren't very good. And a lot of the editorials are just trash. I just think that the MMA media overall isn't very good. And I think this fight is a good example of just how they're not that good at it, because the focus shouldn't have just been on the fact that this was Roxanne Modafferi's retirement bout. The way that this fight should have been presented was a passing of the torch, because you have a true pioneer of the sport in Modafferi, who's been doing it since 2003. When was her first bout? Let me look that up real quick. Here we go. So Roxanne Modafferi's bout, her first pro fight, was in November of 2003. So here she is, 17, 19 years later, retiring against someone who's only been fighting for a few years. Casey O'Neal made her pro debut in 2019. So she's only been fighting for 3 years. This was her 9th pro bout and fighting on the big stage. This is like the epitome of a passing the torch fight, because you have an older fighter retiring, and in her last bout, she's taking on a young, hungry up-and-comer. And that is the way the media should have covered this fight. Yes, it is Roxanne Modafferi's retirement bout, but she's going out and she's passing the torch to a young, hungry, up-and-coming prospect. If you follow the Japanese MMA scene at all, and I know not many do as much as I do, but that's the way they do it. If it's your announced retirement bout, they're not going to put you in, usually 9 times out of 10, you're not going to go in there against a fellow veteran. You're going in there against a young, hungry up-and-comer, because it's supposed to be out with the old and in with the new. The veteran goes out, and it's meant to be that the newcomer wins, because the newcomer then makes their name off of the retiree. I think that largely the MMA media did a disservice by mostly making the focus on Modafferi's retirement bout when they should have also been equally talking up Casey O'Neill, because they were making a big deal about her up until fight week, and then come fight week, it was all about Modafferi's retirement. That's pretty much all of the headlines were regarding this fight. So I think that the MMA media really missed a large opportunity, and I think that O'Neill has a bit of a point in being a little bit upset about the media coverage surrounding this bout. But that's just me. But overall, I thought this was a really good fight. It was really fun. I mean, there wasn't a dull moment in it. Both fighters went out there. They fought their absolute hearts out. Roxanne can definitely say that she rode up into the sunset with, zero regrets. I mean, obviously she wanted to win, but I mean, she went out on even with the loss, she went out on a high note, because she knew she can walk away knowing that she left it all in there for her last bout. So I thought it was a good fight, and O'Neill showed a lot of improvement in her stand-up. Now, granted, it wasn't against the best striker in the division, but Modafferi went from having zero striking to having good, effective striking. So I think it was a good opponent for O'Neill to, level up against. Because I've talked in the past about how, Modafferi is like the definition of what a gatekeeper in mixed martial arts should be. A lot of people use that term to just, put down a fighter, like, oh, they're just a gatekeeper. I don't believe that term should be used negatively. I think it just depends on what fighter you're talking about and how you take it, because I think a gatekeeper is absolutely useful and very necessary in this division. And Roxanne served that role very well, because if a fighter could get past Modafferi, you knew that you could be a contender, could move into that contender level. So O'Neill does that, and now she's going to start being treated, I believe, like a contender. The rankings came out today, and she is now number, I want to say 11. Let me check here. She is now at number 12. She was at number 15. Of course, Modafferi has been removed, and O'Neill is up 3 spots from 15 to 12. So I'd say that's a good move there. I mean, she beat a veteran, beat a good fighter, and got to move up, and now she's moving herself into that area where she's not just a prospect anymore. They're going to start treating her more like a contender. I think she's still a couple of years off from, title contention necessarily, but she's like on the outer limits of being a contender. But yeah, going back to my original point, I think the media dropped the ball on this fight. They should have been treating it as a passing of the torch. The veteran retires, yes, but the newcomer won. And, the torch has now been passed from, Modafferi is part of that first generation of women's MMA fighters, and now she's passing it on to the newest generation. So I think they dropped the boat on it overall. Next, I want to talk about Radzuan versus Yamaguchi. I think the judges got it wrong. I just finished watching the fight before I started the stream, and I still agree with my initial thoughts. I thought Yamaguchi eked this one out. I'm not going to say, a lot of people were calling this a robbery. I'm not going to call it a robbery, but I do think the fight should have gone the other way. The big problem with this is that, One Championship, their judges, they've had a lot of questionable decisions lately. Also, recently they had the bout with Katarina Vondarieva, took on Wonder Girl Fairtex, and like everybody thought that Vondarieva won. Let me pull that up here. That was at, I want to say Only the Brave. No, was it? No, it was at One Heavy Hitters, I think. Yeah, so at One Heavy Hitters, had another questionable decision with, or no, I'm sorry, it wasn't Wonder Girl, it was Supergirl. Jaransek Muay Thai defeated Katarina Vondarieva via split decision in a Muay Thai bout. And that was recent. And everyone was like, what were these judges watching? Vondarieva won that one. So One Championship, they've got some questionable decisions lately on their hands. And not just in the ladies either. There have been some men's bouts as well. None immediately spring to mind, but there have been some men's bouts where people were just like, what is going on with the judging here? I think One Championship has a serious problem on their hands because they've got to train their judges better. And I have a few ideas. One thing, like, I know One Championship doesn't have an amateur program of their own, but I know, like, say, for example, Road FC in Korea has their amateur program. So when they're training referees and judges, they go through a training program, and then they start off with the amateur bouts, where they only do amateur bouts for a while. And that's usually how it goes with a lot of the athletic commissions in the U.S. as well. You have to go through training, and then you start off on the amateur circuit, where you go and you basically work for free or next to nothing, refereeing and judging amateur bouts. And then after you do that for a while, then you move up into the pro ranks. And One Championship, I don't know how they train their judges. I don't know where they get them from. I don't know how they train them. Nobody really knows. And I think that's a problem. They need a set training program in for their judges. The referees I don't have a problem with the referees for the most part. Olivier Coste has some questionable moments, but I thought he did a pretty good job on Friday, considering he had to do every single fight. But for the judges, they need to get they absolutely need to work on a training program. I mean, if they're going to bring in these judges, they need some good credentials. But another problem with One is their judging criteria. I think it needs to be laid out more clearly as well. I've been trying to get a hold of the actual judging criteria document on what they use to judge on. No luck so far. I mean, all we can really go on is what they have available on their website. Pull that up real quick. About martial arts. So I've gone over this before about their judging criteria. This is for the MMA, near KO or submit, and it's in descending order as well. So near KO or submission, damage, internal, accumulated, superficial, striking combinations, and cage generalship, ground control, superior positioning, and then earn takedowns, takedown defense, and then finally aggression. And I think if you look over these, it's hard to justify giving the decision on Friday to Gian. I thought I'd say near KO or submission, probably about even. Damage, I think it was about equal. Now, a lot of superficial damage to the leg of Mei Yamaguchi from the low kicks. But again, it was mostly superficial because if you watch the fight, she wasn't slowing down from the damage. Striking combinations and cage generalship, I thought Mei Yamaguchi did that because especially the ground control and superior positioning, that was definitely Yamaguchi. Especially considering like half of the first round. Yamaguchi had control on top on the ground. But also cage generalship. Yamaguchi was the one factoring where most of the fight went. Radzuan was just circling away for the most part, looking to counter, but she wasn't like leading Yamaguchi anywhere. Earned takedowns or takedown defense goes to Yamaguchi as well. And then aggression definitely goes towards Yamaguchi for like 90% of the fight. So if you go just by this limited amount here, then it's easy to see. I thought that May won. But I would love to get my hands on like more detailed criteria if there is such a thing. But that's the big thing. Like, it should be readily available to, I think they should make it readily available to everybody, the fans. It'd be a lot easier to understand. And then I think if it was more detailed, then the judges would be able to know what they're looking at as well. So one championship needs to work on two things. They need to train their judges better. They need to make their criteria a lot clearer. Raw Hobbies and Lifestyle in the chat says one of the ref got COVID, so Olivier, one person had to handle it all. Probably what's his name? Mohammed Suleiman is usually reffing in Singapore. I'm wondering if that was him. Hope he's okay. Whichever ref it is, I hope they're okay. So, but that was it for one championship. They've been fumbling a bit lately with these decisions, and it makes the promotion look bad, and it ruins the show kind of. So that's not something you really want going on, because it causes people to lose faith in your promotion. Another thing, so I didn't want to spend too much time on that. Like I said, this is mostly an impromptu stream. I wasn't planning for it. I just decided to do it this afternoon. But we had a couple Bellator announcements. I want to say 275, 276 coming up next month. They announced a pair of ladies bouts. First up at featherweight, Kat Zingano taking on Pam Sorensen. I think this is an all right matchup here. Kat Zingano, she needs a ranked win. If they're going to try to justify a title fight for Kat Zingano, then she needs an actual ranked featherweight win. Her two fights so far in Bellator, I pull up their rankings. Her first fight was against, I forget her name, but she hadn't fought in something like 3 years. And then her second fight was against Olivia Parker. Parker is right now, she's ranked at number 9. I don't know why, because she's like 0-2 in Bellator. 0-1 or 0-2. No, she's 0-1 in Bellator. And then she's not even in Bellator anymore. She's going to fight she has a PFL bout coming up in a couple weeks. So I think they only ranked her in order to help justify Zingano's ranking. But right now, Zingano is at number 2. She's at number 2. And they're trying to find a reason to justify giving her a title shot. So they're matching her up with number 7th ranked Pam Sorensen, who I think is 1-1. Maybe 0. Actually, I think she's 0-2 in Bellator. Let me check real quick. I know she has not looked very good. Oh. Okay, she's 1-1 in Bellator. She lost to Arlene Blenko in November and just got absolutely dominated by Blenko too. But, I mean, this ain't a bad matchup at all. The other ladies matchup they added was Diana Avsarkova, taking on Ashley Dean. This is an okay fight. Avsarkova's 4-0. This is going to be at flyweight, by the way. Ashley Dean is like 4-6. I don't mind a 4-0 fighter taking on someone who's 4-6. That's not a bad matchup, matchmaking wise at all. But it's in Bellator. Like, why is Bellator signing a fighter with a losing record to build up a fighter? Like, if you need to build up a fighter like this, then they shouldn't belong in Bellator. I'm sorry. And that's nothing against Diana Avsaragova. I think she shows promise. But Bellator shouldn't be signing fighters with the losing record in order to build up prospects. Like, you're supposed to be like the default number 2 promotion. And you're signing a fighter with an upside-down record in order to build a prospect who's undefeated so far. Like, that's what you see in boxing, but MMA fans honestly expect better. Like, if this were a boxing fight, okay, it'd be perfect. And I don't mind it myself, but it shouldn't be on a Bellator card, even on the prelims. Deep Jewels 36. They've released both of their fight posters for their upcoming event. They actually released 2 this time. So this is for, the non flyweight Grand Prix bouts. Of course, they got, the 4 most well-known fighters. Saori Oshima, Miki Motono, the former strawweight champ. Mizuki Oshiro. So you got the 2 Ryzen fighters. Mizuki Furuse, still pretty well known. Then you got the flyweight Grand Prix poster, which is pretty nice as well. I mean, it's kind of a little bit more abstract, but I mean, it has all the fighters on it, and it actually says right on it in Japanese and English exactly what you're looking at. It's for the flyweight Grand Prix first round, which I like. You find people that weren't even around for Pride, but they'll dig up old Pride event posters and be like, oh my gosh, the Pride posters were so awesome. And they were like, they made 0 sense, and you had no idea what you were actually looking at because they were just really abstract. So I like what Deep Jewels has been doing with their fight event posters lately. And then final bit of news. Invicta FC 46 announced the finalized lineup. So this goes down next month. Of course, it's headlined by the flyweight title bout, Karina Rodriguez versus Ketlin Souza. Another flyweight co-main event, Diana Torquato versus Milana Dudaeva. Strawweight bout, Danielle Taylor versus Liz Tracy. This is a new bout they announced today. Christina Williams versus Flor Hani at flyweight. That should be a good one. So it's a very flyweight heavy card. But Christina Williams, former Bellator fighter. Most well known for beating Heather Hardy. I mean, just beating the absolute piss out of Heather Hardy. Then atomweight bout, Paulina Granados versus Monique Adriani. And then at strawweight, they had already announced Fatima Klein would be fighting. And then they announced her opponent is going to be Nadia Vera. Let me see if I can find her profile real quick here. I looked it up earlier. I want to say she's 4-0. She's 3-1 out of Mexico. And then she's had all 4 of her bouts for Budo Sento Championship, which are all held in, I believe they're all held in Mexico. So she's going to be taking on Fatima Klein, who is 1-0 as a pro and made her pro debut in Invicta. So that's it for tonight. That's really it for tonight. I didn't have a whole lot. Just wanted to do this little bit impromptu stream. I don't like to go on for too long. And usually when I go live or even with my videos, I like to have a structure. A lot of MMA channels, they just come on, they'll do a live stream, and they'll just drone on and on and on about whatever. I can't do that. That's not my style. I like to have a structure. I like to have a set list of things I want to talk about and prepare. So this one I just kind of threw together. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do with talking about one's judging and, the MMA media missing the point of the passing the torch fight. Everything else I just kind of threw on extra. I just like to have that structure. That's just how I am. But next live stream will be going to try to do Thursday night. Get back on track with the regular Thursday night WMMA report live streams. I work best on a schedule, so we'll try to get back on schedule for that. Going to try to make 1 or 2 videos tonight before bed, although I'm already pretty tired. But that's really all I have. So if you like the stream, please give it a like if you haven't already. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to WMMA Seeing Now. You know, the best, most complete women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Thank you to everyone for watching tonight, and to everyone watching on the replay. And we'll see you next time.